That each and everything we say and do here tonight be in your will, Lord, in the best interest of the school district, most of all of our children, Lord. Ask you to forgive us and go with us in Jesus' name. Amen. No open forum. At this time, we're going to have a financial audit and see if Cameron straighten us out.
You guys that don't know it, this is Cameron Gully. He's our auditor. If you don't mind, I'll do a few more. He does. It's good bedtime reading, I tell you that. Just a way of explanation. Y'all have down paper copies of the audits before you. Back in September, I guess mid-September or somewhere around then, state sent out an email which y'all may or may not be aware of that said they're not going to take a paper copy of the audit anymore, effective October 1. And so y'all have a nice, clean, bound booklet for the audit, but TEA says if you send us a paper copy this year, we're going to return it to you. So the only thing they're going to accept this year is an electronic copy, which I will submit. And when y'all approve it, I'll take this back as I normally do, and that will be the only submission that's required with TEA this year, which will make it a little bit more seamless and on y'all's end, and should make their paperwork a lot easier. I'm sure that's what it's all about. Because you get 1,040 some odd audits every year, I'm sure they have a lot of storage space that they need to keep all those. And this will alleviate that. That's the only filing requirement y'all have. You don't have any outstanding bonds. The capital lease that you have, they may want a copy of the audit, and if so, you send them a paper copy. Other than that, the only official copy that will be required to be kept will be the official district copy, of which you'll need to have one signed copy for that purpose only. Other than that, when I leave here tonight, I'll take my paper, the approved signed page, and I'll take it and I'll publish it on TEA's website, and I'll be done. Another thing going forward this year, y'all are basically in full recapture mode for the year that you're in now. Last year you were in partial recapture. Sent the state back over almost $200,000. Actually, you sent them over $300,000, but once they calculated your final cost of water cost for the year, they are refunding you, if they haven't already done so, over $200,000 of that money. And so your net cost to them is going to be a little bit less than $200,000 for the year. This year, the year that you're in now, the tax values have jumped almost another $100 million in taxable values, which is going to put y'all in near full recapture as far as state aid. You're going to get a little bit of state aid, but very little. You're going to probably send the state back nearly $700,000 this school year. The good thing relative to that is your tax revenues are going to be a lot more than that, and so you're still going to be able to bank money this year, even with the amount of money that you're going to pay back to Austin and the reduced state funding that you're going to have. That is the animal that we have as far as state funding under the current environment. It's basically they want full recapture and to keep your target revenues at a base level of the 2005-2006 valuations. And so anything above that, base values, you have to send back to them as far as tax revenues are concerned as it relates to state aid. The beauty of that for y'all is as long as y'all's as long as your values continue to increase, you're ahead of the curve by 1 year. And so that's why you're going to be able to bank money this year as you did this year that just ended, because your values are continuing to go up. And until they level off and begin to decline, you're going to stay ahead of the game as far as cash flow and earned revenue with the state, because they don't recognize that recapture amount until the year after your valuations change. And so as long as your values continue to go up, you should be okay. But when your values begin to to level and decline, then you may get in a position where you're actually paying the state back more money than what you're taking in. And that's just something, FYI, as you go forward, as you plan, cash flow is going to be king for y'all because your values are changing so drastically that you need to really forecast your cash flow on a very periodic basis, as opposed to just taking 1 year at a time. You look at it 2 and 3 years down the road to see where you're going to go with potential implications of the recapture. This year, you had a good, solid year. You'll see you have had a very healthy fund balance. Page 1 is the certification page, as I just discussed. That's where the signing of the approval of the audit will take place. Page 2 is the opinion letter that just states that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Page 3 begins the MD&A letter, which is the management discussion and analysis letter, or the executive summary, if you want to call it that, comparing this year's financial data to last year's financial data from Exhibits A1 and B1. Table 1 will be Exhibit A1, Table 2 will be Exhibit B1, compared with this year to last year. If you look at Table 1 on page 5, that is going to be your balance sheet, comparing the balance sheets this year to last year on the full accrual basis. And so it's going to differ from the balance sheet numbers that are on Exhibit C1 because it won't, the C1 exhibit will not include your infrastructure assets or long-term debt. If you look on page 5, first line, current other assets is up by $462,000. That's made up of two components. Cash, which is up almost $300,000 this year from last year, cash and investments, and then receivables from the state for overpaid recapture costs that I discussed earlier. So the combination of those two numbers is the net increase in receivables by $462,000. Capital assets went down a net of $10,000 because of depreciation expense. The assets that were added were on page 7, and you see the detailed listing of those capitalized assets that are assets that individually cost more than $5,000. You see the concession stand completion. Total cost of that, including last year's numbers, was about $80-some-odd thousand in total. Football stadium fencing in the gated area, $16,000. Your sidewalk at the stadium, $11,400. The scoreboard, that includes the wiring and installation costs, not just the gross cost of the scoreboard itself. $30,000, and you bought the John Deere Moore for $8,600 for total additions of $90,000. The net decrease there is going to be the excess of depreciation expense to the asset additions on page 5. Long-term liabilities for the year decreased by $30,401. That's decreased in principal on your outstanding lease on the bus that y'all bought last year. Y'all pay annual payments on that of about $36,000 per year, and it will pay off in 2014. Your other liabilities went up this year by $114,000, and that is due to state foundation revenue overpayments. And so for the 2011-12 year, y'all were overpaid because of basically the netting effect of state revenues. They paid y'all about $400,000, $400-some-odd thousand. You actually earned about $300,000, and so they'll recapture that back in this fiscal year, as well as the netting and refunding back to y'all the Chapter 41 overpayments. Net revenues, net surplus, the bottom line of total net assets there increased $467,000 per year. That's the surplus on the full accrual basis. On the modified basis, it will differ slightly than that. One line that is very positive for y'all this year is you look at the net asset line item for restricted for federal and state programs. That's the food service surplus, which that's kind of an unusual term that you had a surplus in the food service fund. But y'all did. Y'all had a profit in your food service fund of $7,100 this year. And so that has to stay in restricted net assets. Revenues, the bottom of the page, increased by $300,000. Property taxes, obviously, the largest increase there, $426,000 of valuation increases. And then we lost state aid as a result of those valuation increases from last year of $153,000, inclusive of the state aid funding cut that was going to happen anyway if the value stayed the same. And so your total net assets, as far as revenues, were up by $300,394. Next page is for expenses on the full accrual basis again. Total expenses for the year increased by $62,000 in aggregate. You can see the various categories where they changed. In particular, Instructional expenses went down this year by $212,000 because of reductions in salary costs this year. Likewise, you can see some of the other functional categories that went down significantly. Instructional and school leadership also was relative to payroll cost decreases. The one item that went up a bunch, which is kind of a one-time increase, is general administration costs. You remember when I was here last year, you had both Casey here talking about the wind farm application permit. $60,000 of that $112,000 is the fees paid to them for that permit that basically was that didn't materialize. But y'all were paid that in donations by the windmill company, so it didn't really cost y'all anything. It just looks like, man, we had a huge increase in general administration costs. Well, that's why that is up so much this year, is because of that. And the revenue for that is in the operating grant and contributions line item on the previous page, on page 5. You can see the other expenses, the incremental cost associated with Chapter 41, that's your water recapture cost, the last line item in expenses, increased this year to $111,000, up $111,000 from last year to this year. Last year was only $9,400, this year is over $120,000. Even so, you had a surplus for the year of $367,426 for an ending net assets for the year, the last line item in the first column of $3,407,000 on the full accrual basis. The modified basis will be different than that because it won't include your infrastructure. Page 9 will be your balance sheet on the full accrual basis of your day one. The numbers on this exhibit are what still table 1 we've already looked at. You see the detail of assets and liabilities and net assets. You see your capital asset items there beginning in line 1510. And then your non-current liabilities is going to be your capital lease, which is that $98,000 remaining balance on that. Page 10 will be the income statement on a full accrual basis. Again, the numbers from this exhibit B1 fill the table 2 that we've just discussed. You read this, as I've told you all in years past, left to right, gross expenses minus charges for services and program grant revenues to offset your gross cost of operations. For your net cost, which is the last column, that's why those numbers are bracketed. And then your general revenues are at the bottom of the page, which are going to be property taxes, state aid, investment income, and miscellaneous income, for a total surplus of $367,000. Your C exhibits begin on page 11, and this changes the bases of the county from full accrual to modified accrual, basically from accruing revenues and expenditure on a full accrual basis, capitalizing and depreciating your assets. On the C exhibits, it's almost a pure cash basis of accounting with the exception of your state revenues. And so you can see the differences here are going to exclude on this exhibit your capital assets and your long-term liabilities or your capital lease. But your other balances are going to be pretty much the same except for the deferred revenue, because you include in line 2300 is only going to be the state aid overpayment and not the uncollected deferred revenue relative property taxes receivable. So your full accrual net assets are $3.4 million. Your general fund balance on page 11 is $2,333,000, and the difference is going to be your net assets. The second column, your other funds column, is the food service surplus of $7,100 for a total fund balance of $2,340,000. Page 12 will reconcile that fund balance to the net asset number that's on pages 9 and 10. It's going to be your infrastructure activity, depreciation expense, and then changes in levy but uncollected property taxes. Exhibit C3 is going to be the income statement. You can see the income. First column is general fund. Second column is going to be all of your special revenue funds, and then your totals. You can see your local, state, and federal revenues for the year, and then expenditures by category. And then the surplus on the modified basis of county general fund has a surplus of $335,000, and the food service fund has a surplus of $7,100. Again, that's the net fund balance. And those differ from the surplus on the full accrual basis of $367,000, and those numbers are reconciled on page 15. The budget track comparison schedule for the general fund is on page 15. And you can see you had revenues that were over budget by $62,000. Your expenditures were under budget by $354,000. In particular, your Chapter 41 water costs were $205,000 less than budget. And you can see the other categories that came in less than budget. All of them did. The only one that did not was Function 99 for your appraisal district fees. Y'all didn't amend your budget relative to that, and it went over the budget by $3,300. So that was only negative budget variance. Had a budget deficit of $81,000 and an actual surplus of $335,000. Exhibit D1 is going to be your internal service fund, which is your workers' comp fund. Actually, D1, D2, and D3 are all relative to your workers' comp fund. There's not much activity to it. It's basically a pay-as-you-go, self-funded workers' comp fund. You only paid in $2,059 in contributions to it on page 17, and those were paid out in claims. It's a cash in, cash out. It has no cash at the end of the year, so you're going to pay in the cash flow statement for that, and it's a zero cash net activity. Exhibit E1 on page 19 is going to be your student activity fund balance sheet. Your various student organizations have $29,000 in cash and one CD, and then that's all due to various student organizations. Page 20 and following, we're doing the footnotes. These detail basically all the numbers I've just discussed with y'all. The first few pages begin on pages 20, 21, 22, and 23. Those are discussing accounting policies and principles and things of that nature. Page 24 shows the negative budget variances for the year that were over $2,500 from the fund. You haven't seen this exhibit yet, but you went over budget in food service by $5,500, and that's also notated here. And that overage is going to be because of ending bills that y'all paid that basically hit your budget, maxed out your budget, but y'all did not accrue for USDA donated commodities, which were over $7,100 when they made that posting of the received commodities and the expenditure relative to that caused the food service budget line item to go over. And we'll see that schedule in a minute. Pages 27 shows the detailed changes for your assets and relative depreciation expense on those assets. Depreciation expense is towards the middle of page 27, and then you can see how much is allocated to each category on Exhibit D1. It's non-cash expense. The retirement of your capital lease liabilities on page 28, where you can see the principal retired and then you get down to $98,596, and you've got 3 years left on that lease to pay it off. Your retirement footnote is on page 29 and also on page 31 and 32. Footnote R on page 31 shows your local revenues, and you see included in that line item, as I discussed earlier, in donations of $78,000, $60,000 of that is the monies that was Pepper donated to y'all relative to the wind farm application. And then y'all got $18,000 for fundraising relative to the purchase of the scoreboard. That's also included in donations there. And that's the footnotes. Combining exhibits H1 and H2 on pages 34, 35, and then 35 and 36. These are the detailed exhibits relative to the other funds columns on exhibits C1 and C3. H1 will be the balance sheets of all your respective special revenue funds that tie back to the total of the other funds column C1. And likewise, the expenses and revenues from exhibit H2 detail out all the various special revenue funds by fund, revenues and expenditures that tie back to exhibit C3 in aggregate. H9 exhibit on page 38 will be the student activity receipts and disbursements. And you see it has $178,000 in receipts, $196,000 in disbursements, and then ending balance there of $29,000. Y'all transacted the fundraising for the scoreboard through this fund, and so that's why it had a significant negative balance net in net cash for the year, was in part because y'all liquidated that donation during the year. It was pretty much in part because of the last fiscal year. Page 40 and 41 was the tax schedule. Shows your values for the year in column 3 on page 40. Your levy in column 20 on page 41 of $2,651,000. Your collections, $2,644,000, and then your delinquent uncollected balances at the end of the year of $89,261. Y'all have a good collection year this year, as you typically do. I'll do an audit tomorrow night, and their collection rate was 92% this past year, and so y'all's collector is doing a really good job of collecting your taxes. I know Zella's been doing it forever. She's now retired, and we've got a new one, and hopefully she will do just as well. Page 42 will be the cost schedule. Shows your general administration costs and allocation of those, and amongst functional organizational category. J4 exhibit on page 43 is the food service variance that I talked about earlier. When you look at column 35, you had a budget of $90,600 as far as food service expenditures. Actuals were $96,130 because of ending pay bills on August 31st, and now I'm looking into commodities, and that puts all over budget. Compliance section begins on page 45. If you remember last year, if you look on page 46, 45 is the letter. Page 46 will discuss last year's findings. In last year's findings, there were two. That in particular, the big one last year was that y'all bank balances were not reconciled for almost the entire year. This year they were. I spent a lot of time with Melissa getting the service center out of her hair and showing her where she understood how to do it. And she did an amazing job this year. Anytime she had a question, she'd call me. Of course, I have access to y'all's Texas program, so if she had something that she couldn't figure out, she'd ask me to log in, and I'd go and look and see what mistakes she might have made, which was just very minimal throughout the year. But that was not a problem at all this year. The second one is that y'all had one functional category that exceeded your budget last year. This year you have two. We've already discussed those, and that's the disclosure on page 47 for this year, which is a minimal disclosure. There are no internal control issues, no material weaknesses, and no significant deficiencies. So it was a clean audit, and that is the audit relative to this past fiscal year. Questions or comments?
Cameron, as we talked today on the issue with the cafeteria, if I can explain to the board too, commodities or free food we get from the federal government. And one of the things that made our cafeteria more profitable over years is Lou is doing more, getting more commodities and bringing them in. And she's getting a bunch of them. And a lot of times we bring them in, we don't even know where to put them. And I think that's what we're talking about, that even though it's free, you have to count that money, which that's on me, because I had no idea. We've never really used commodities that much before, so it was $77,150. So when we came in and did our budget amendments, we said, well, we need some money in there to start school. We're probably going to be okay, at least under the $2,500, but the $7,700 or the $7,100 was something new that maybe all of us keep in mind as we go forward and make sure we take that into account. And then the other one, if I'm correct on, I just missed it. When we went through all the function, it was the last one, and that's where we started putting our fees up here for the office up here to collect our dues.
And that number's going to be higher this year because your valuations have gone up.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot more. That's just an oversight. Anyway, I want to clear that as maybe.
But we voted for the.
Oh yeah, we could have easily went in there. Those are easy fixes. You just go in there.
Yeah. It's not that you didn't expend the money, and the monies were not properly spent. It was just y'all didn't come in the budget to include that in y'all's expenditure. What else?
Thank you for your
Thank y'all.
good work as usual.
Nice to come here. And as I was coming in this evening, it was really, really pretty. The sun was kind of setting against those bluffs north of town, and you can see the canyons that the river runs through, and they were just like brilliant golden. It was really pretty. I wish I had my phone out to take a picture of that. It was really pretty.
Cameron, you might just kind of tell the board when we talk about the cafeteria and job Lou's done, and talk about other school districts in the cafeteria. How
y'all are doing amazing. The audit I'll present tomorrow night, they're going to have a certain deficit in their food service fund of $37,000. Y'all had a profit of $7,100, which I know y'all have not always had a profit. This was the first year that I can remember in a long time, if ever, that I can recall that y'all had a surplus. And it wasn't because of a one-time event. It wasn't y'all got a donation from somebody. It wasn't that y'all deferred expenditures. It was just a well-run year. Just a very good job done by cafeteria. Food costs were in line. Y'all's student numbers, as far as eating in the cafeteria, helped that. And hopefully, as y'all's numbers stay up, that will continue to help. That's where it's not a burden on the general fund, which is what it is and has been in years past, as it is with most small schools. The food service fund is not a money-making operation, generally speaking. But in y'all's case, it was this past year.
I remember 40,000 more than once.
Several times. And also, you know, it's kind of off that, but, you know, we may be facing that, having to have summer programs to feed the summer, so maybe some of that money can help offset that, those costs.
Yeah, I was impressed.
We need a motion to adjourn that.
Is that what you need right now?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? You?
I emailed you the rest of them, don't know.
I'll have one that had all the signatures on it.
If you can email it to me, that's fine.
Second, would you go over, while we do this administration report, and get on my computer and print that off?
Sure.
I think for all the signatures on there.
I think this is the first time I've been here that everybody's been here.
We don't need, you're
Well, you're fixing to possibly start this, so y'all may want to sign a few more.
Do you, these have to be signed, one of these, one of them signed? What are they
Yes,
signed?
page one.
You don't want to sign one? So you think we might need a few?
You might,
But not only need one sign?
Yes.
Okay. She can run and get that, when we get it signed, you don't have to.
Sure.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on to administrative reports, item number 5.
Sherry, you want to start?
We have a lot of things going on in elementary. We've got Halloween parties this week. Next week, we have open house on Monday night, and we also have book fair, and so the library will be open during open house for parents' night and everything, so that parents will have an opportunity to come and look. Tuesday is the election, and so we're going to host a mock election on the elementary campus. Grades 3 through 5 are going to actually vote. All the grades are doing some kind of activities in their classrooms about elections and voting and that kind of thing, but Region 14 is sponsoring this mock election throughout the region. So after we vote Tuesday morning and then Tuesday afternoon, we will watch the election returns for the region through the distance learning program, and they're going to have a little program and have a map, and so each school that participates will be either colored red or blues, and they can kind of watch, and so then maybe they can make some connections that night when it's the real deal. Let's see, Wednesday we also have our Veterans Day program. We're doing it a little bit early this year instead of right at Veterans Day. Each class will do a little part in the program, and then we have a guest speaker. It'll be Nancy Robinson Masters. She is from Abilene, and she is a pilot and an author, and she is very entertaining. She'll be great for all ages and adults as well, and she will also bring some of her books and have them for sale, and we'll autograph them and let the kids come through and shake her hand and see, have connections to a real life author. And so it's going to be a busy week next week. Our fundraiser went pretty well. We finished that up a couple of weeks ago, and we'll have all the deliveries made before Thanksgiving. So that's pretty much what's going on.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for us?
Well, I think the end of next week will be the end of our second grading cycle. It's going by really fast. Things are going well. We just had our fall festival this weekend. Everybody, I think, was there. Appreciate those that helped out and supported everybody. I think that was a good thing for the community. A lot of people out and about. I was glad to be able to include the school in with that. and get some of that going, and maybe we can keep that going for years to come. That's been a good thing. For me in the past when I was in school, and I think it's going to be good moving forward in the future with the kids. And a good turnout, and at the dance we had fun, and just a good day all the way around. Made for a long weekend, but it was fun. Football and volleyball going well right now. I know a lot of people got some bragging rights Friday night. There were some adults around here that got some bragging rights. I got to eat chicken for the first time ever for breakfast. We had Jay Bird for breakfast Friday morning. And so things are going good. I think school spirit is real high. Kids are really excited about what's going on. Tomorrow the girls play bi-district volleyball playoff game. Pep rally is at 2:30. We moved that pep rally to 2:30 tomorrow. So if y'all are planning on being there, Coach Glenn wanted to leave a little earlier. So that pep rally will be at 2:30. And there will be a fan bus leaving at 4:30 tomorrow for that. Looking forward, we also are going to be taking place in the mock election, junior high and high school. Sherry kind of informed you on that. That's going to be kind of a neat thing for the kids to get the experience of trying to learn how to register to vote and kind of have their own say in that. Coach Gilmore's class is doing some video interviews that are going to be actually on the playback of this election, so that's going to be neat. And I think kids are excited about that. If you were at the pep rally, the Blackout pep rally, they did that same video, the highlight video. I thought it was real neat. Star Wars theme. It was pretty cool. So a lot of good things going on there with our technology. Saturday, our junior high one-act play is going to perform in Hamlin. Kind of a practice deal leading up to their district contest on the 15th. So it's just a couple of weeks away for the junior high one-act play. Open house. Jerry also talked about open house next week on the 5th. And that's really about it. A lot of good things going on. I was real proud of my teachers. They pulled together and organized some good booths, and I think everybody just really enjoyed that. And, so anyways, good things going on in the high school, junior high level. Questions about anything?
I gotta make another trip. I had some of y'all's bills with me. I left them in the state of my pickup. Okay. So I will bring those with the next couple of days. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate you very much.
Appreciate it. See y'all later.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna add a few things to that. The enrollment figures are right behind the agenda. You'll see those are remaining somewhat steady at 253. There's your high school or secondary attendance at 97.3. Your elementary is 97.39. And the district is at 97.35. That's from our last regular board meeting. Highlights of activities for October. You'll see the pep rally there is marked at 3, so you need to correct that. It'll be at 2:30 tomorrow. And then the girls will be playing West Texas High. Team we haven't probably played in anything in a long time. That's Stinnett out there. It's Stinnett. We'll be playing at Childers, so we start at 6:30. A little bit of change in junior high and high school. The junior high and high school will be over at Patton Springs on Thursday for a doubleheader. That junior high game is scheduled here. They couldn't get officials, so we moved them both there. And then next year they'll both here. As Mr. Moore said, one A play will be at Hamlin on Saturday. Area volleyball is scheduled on that day also, pending the result of the Tuesday night game. Open house is not on the list there. It is from 6 to 6:45. And then at 7 o'clock we'll start the one-act plays and then the fall production from the high school. Girls, our first girls basketball game is scheduled on see all the other activities going on there. Pending the rest of the season and positive results, which I feel good about. Our first by-district football game will be on the 16th. Our by-district football game will be on the 16th.
What time is the veterans program on the 7th?
9 o'clock.
Okay.
Again, we'll get into lots of changes and things as we go on, but there's pretty much a good take of what's going on. Title I ICR report, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, the next page is basically our Title I ICR report. It's how we're evaluated for Title I is they have like so many indicators that we have to meet, and some don't apply to us and some do apply to us. And through the compliance report, audits, evaluations, that they do various things throughout the year, this is the report that I get that basically tells me if we're in compliance or if we're not in compliance. And I can go back and get into each one of those numbers that they show on there is something like, for instance, did we hold a parent meeting, which we normally hold ours during open house? Did our principals sign an attestation, things like that. We either get a 0 or a 1, and a 0 means that we met the compliance item, and a 1 means that we didn't. And basically, right there, if you'll look, I think we got evaluated on 18. I think there's like 105 different ICRs that you could be evaluated on. A school our size, I think we only got evaluated on 18 of them, and we were compliant in all areas and didn't have any findings.
Okay, this is good. I mentioned I had Allison took over our Title I for us when we went through the budget cuts and trying to save money. Usually Region 14 does that, and she does all our Title I. She does a really, really good job and very organized, and I didn't expect anything less than that. That's all I had rolling on Superintendent's report.
Okay. And at this time, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Number 1 item there would be approved minutes from the previous meeting.
Do we need to approve them separately?
Probably so.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 17th meeting. Second.
All in favor?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 15th meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? This time I'll turn it over to Mr. Keith Moore.
Keith, Roland's bills were $15.50.98 on page 5, 4 rather, 4 or 5. Oh, okay. Really, just a lot of different things. The one big bill is $1,200 wet dry vac, tarps, paints, door sweeps, vehicle inspection sticker, football supplies, drill, paint, jigsaw blades, and bits.
I make a motion to pay Roland.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, Ron.
Roland, I'll go through some highlighted areas I have for you that will bring up some questions. Pallet forks, $850. That was on our budget list of items, the wish list that we wanted to get for our motor tractor to help move things around the campus. G5 Apple Inc. was a computer replacement, and that was paid out of G5 money, which is federal money, so kind of free Dual credit classes, we've made a commitment to pay part of the dual credit classes for the kids, and, had a larger roof in here than normal, so it was at $3,100. Football uniforms, the bill came in for that, it was $6,100. And there's any of them, I asked questions, but some of them stood out as questions. Playgrounds Inc. on page 3, the Gridiron bought all the backs and breasts for the bleachers. I needed 2 more, and of course their funds were depleted, and it was $500, and I went and paid that here. Fencing design, that's something that stood out. That's the painting for all the fences. That bill came in very late. It was $332. Also, Region 14 is our services on page 4 or 5. That is a huge bill that we have to pay each year, and it's $27,570. And there's all the list of things that Region 14 provides for us. Some of them we have to have. We just have to have. Under the district checks list, lots of football officials, lots of volleyball officials, meals, things like that. A couple things that stood out: TNT signs and brackets. I replaced the sign, the old wooden signs that were underneath the press box with nice signs that says "Home of the Hornets." Odyssey Wear license renewal was $6,000, which is a large amount that we had to pay for. And then Service Masters cleanup of some water damage in the superintendent's office at $17.95, which should fall under insurance. We'll get our money back on that and all that stuff. Cleaned up and finished.
Anybody see anything, you have any questions about?
My last page where it says superintendent supplies margaritas, what's that?
I knew somebody that did. That came in after the flooding. No, we actually hosted a neat thing too. We started doing Tri-County Co-op goes to each school district and has their meeting at the school district, and Tri-County came here with all 10 superintendents and we didn't get margaritas, but we did order burritos over there, so we did. We fed them burritos up there. I figured it.
No further questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to pay the bills. I'll second it.
All in favor? All right. At this time, I believe we'll move into the select and rank approved architects for a building project. Consider allowing the superintendent to negotiate the fees. We got,
I didn't turn on him, I wasn't here.
he's got one.
I didn't fill one out, but I've made some calls. Go ahead, I want to touch base with one person on that.
Let her kind of go through that, and the 4 people that were here did fill them out.
Just cancel those that weren't here.
I didn't know if y'all wanted me to, or felt like I should. I didn't mind doing it. I didn't. I just let y'all do it.
I think you should. You're going to be in the middle of it. Everybody does here.
Like I said, I didn't have a problem with it, so but I did do some calling around too, and I think that's some things we need to talk about. I want to kind of get that.
How was it? How were their presentations?
I thought they were all.
They were all good. I mean, you know, some of them had different levels of what they had to show us, I guess, different levels of presentation. And those things, I don't think there could have been a bad one out of the bunch. I think you have 3 in this area, and we had two that were completely other, the closest anything it does to Bryson, and they're from East Texas. And the other one's supposed to probably work Garner or somewhere, wherever that was at.
The one at Bryson, did they build a whole new district?
They built the whole school.
Ronnie was just telling me, he drove by there and he's like, it's a whole new,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played them, year 4 last day, because they hadn't finished it yet, they're working on it.
He said it's up on top of the hill and it's just all in the place.
Anyway, and I guess there'll be the 5 of us was here, I guess, the way we do, we can see where we landed, and then we can discuss about what we thought. I think it's kind of thing. I think Clay may have someone he talked to about one of them that might give some insight.
We got, 2, while she told me, I'll just tell you this, we have our attorney, that we would have a subdivision, for construction. David Hanson is the guy that I've been talking to, and he's been billing me every time I talk to him, but he sent us our contracts. This right here is a general contract, okay? It's not specific to our person that we've selected. Once we select the person, then he will come in there and fill in all the information, put in those folks' names. This is something you take home and read. It's a pretty detailed contract. And then, upon your approval, then I'll mail them a copy of the contract and have them a chance to go over it with their attorneys. And then we will meet and basically go over the contract in detail and make sure everything's in line. If they've got questions on issues, then we'll discuss them, and then we'll come up with our percentage of fees. And what I've been doing is calling around to the other schools that have done their work, and trying to get the percentage that they're working off of. I've had them as low as 5.5 to as high as 7. So that seems to be the range that these architects are working for. And what would be easier, what David suggested you do, is you allow me to try to negotiate those fees as low as we can get them through constant communication with them, bring you the contract, let y'all look over the contract, let you have time to look over it, and if you have any questions, then of course the board will be the one that approves the contract. At that time, it just saves several meetings to come. It's hard to do. It's a little bit easier one-on-one, I think. But I'm willing to do whatever you, like I said, I haven't been down this road before, but.
My understanding that it's usually around 6%.
That's been the common thing. I talked to Spur 2 weeks ago, and they paid 7. He paid 7% for his. But 6% is what I've been hearing around the city, so, as far as fees goes. And then, there's some things like, are they gonna charge us for mileage? Are they gonna try to charge us for diems and all that stuff? We've just gotta get all that stuff worked out, so we'll all know. How much do they get up front? When do they get paid their second check? All these things we'll have to have lined up. What if bond fails? How much money we into? So there's a lot of little things we need to look at and get lined out.
Yeah, that's important. Did you put yours in there?
Yes. Okay, it looks like we have Ty, Grounds and Associate and Capital as the 2 top ones. They're the local folks that have done the schools within our relatively close area. LBL Architects, the one that did Bryson, is 3rd. And then BSC Abilene, and then BWA would be their last. it's real important that we have them ranked, because if we don't have them ranked, then if I fail to come up with an agreement with that with that particular one, then by law, you're supposed to go to the next one in line.
Who was the last one, what did you say?
BWA. I will say this in all fairness, I've talked to a couple of people that didn't recommend very highly of Grimes. And I'm just telling you this because they told me, and it might have been, in fairness, that they were contractors. Remember, he said he can contract and be an architect. In both of those situations, they were the contractor and the architect in both of them. And, so I wanted to lay that out there in all fairness. Cadco, it seems like they're one of the two guys seems to work better with the people, but other than that, I hadn't had a whole lot of negativity about Cadco, but I did want to say that about that in all fairness. LBL, the superintendent from Bryson called, and the former superintendent, as I told you in that last meeting, I didn't have anything but really good things to say about them. PCS, as I've mentioned before, not a lot of current activities going on. Seem like that's all I can give you. I did find a couple more things on grounds.
The guy that I talked to is a builder himself, commercial builder, doesn't handle schools, familiar with Grimes. He's had associates who have had dealings with them and said they're usually not good. As far as being on time and coming under budget and stuff like that. He was adamant about saying he would steer clear of them. PCS, is that Parker, Hill, Smith, and Cooper? Mm-hmm. He said they're good, but they might design you a building that looks fancy with the architectural structure, so you pay a lot more for your building just for fancy designs. And he said it's all in what you want. As far as designing something, he said he thinks they're very well qualified. It's just if you choose them, you may have to say, we do or we don't want this fancy monument in the front. And that's really the only two that he had any knowledge of. He didn't know about this Cadco company.
I don't remember who had Cadco done.
Cadco did Hermely,
Hermely's.
and then they did Stanford. They did a lot of work. They had a ton of them, but they did work in Harley. And I've met with all the superintendents here. I think so. I think Clyde was referred to. I
Did
did
that work in Haskell last year? You know who did that?
Yes,
yeah. And they Bill highly recommended Bill Alcorn. In that meeting I had in here, I just asked them all. Of course, they all had a little bit dealing with Cadco, and they thought they were fine. I think we're never going to have our experience. We're never going to know till we have our experience, and then we're going to find out.
Cadco is from Abilene.
Has any of them talked about? Oh, that's part of the contractors. No architects.
Well, I was kind of torn between the two myself. With the.
I just think if you get something that's telling us that might stay clear, and like I said, I like these people. They've been here a bunch and spent a lot of time here. Very nice individuals, but I did hear that from two people that I really trust, and I don't know if it was because they were contractors and architects, but they did say that they didn't get it done in a timely manner. It was one of the biggest things that I was told.
Anybody else have any comments or thoughts? Both, I felt most comfortable with both of those, but, and like I say, if you have no report, better than a bad report, but if Harmony went through, I mean, it's still the same superintendent, they built the whole facility with Cadco.
I know Gary very well too, and he didn't have anything negative to say about it. And they built the whole, everything.
And I mean, I don't mind giving this guy's number. Do you think you'd be more willing to help us out? Because the individual also has served on a school board where there's been $100 million plus project. So, I mean, I trust what he's saying. He just asked me not to
Understand?
not to use his name or where he's from.
Well, how's everybody feel? I don't have a problem with Cadco, I mean, like I said, that's one I was kinda comfortable with to begin with. They're two guys, basically.
Yeah,
Like
they said
here,
that.
I mean, we'll deal with the two.
We'll deal with them. It won't be them let some architect do it. That's part of the firm. It's those two guys are gonna do it that were here. Like I said, they had 12 people that worked total in their whole company, and I feel like it's gonna be.
And this guy also told me the two questions you want to ask references if you call is, number one, were they on time on the project and were they within a budget? Because he said that's where they get you, they come in way high from what they budget you. He said there's a guaranteed maximum price that you can bid out, and
That's what we'll do.
I'm sure y'all are well ahead of me, but
We'll start that construction selection. That's what we'll be doing. So right now, I think that the whole process is to get the contractor and then get some visuals, some renderings going, and then we can start selling that project. And that's why it's real important. We probably would walk out of here with somebody in mind and that we can negotiate with and to start that negotiation.
Now, it's time to speak up, I guess, if anybody has any reservations with moving forward with Cadco, is that the feeling I get? I know it's not real fair to everybody that wasn't here, but there, I mean.
There wasn't that much difference in all of them whenever they put their presentation on, so.
I think.
There's a lot of repeating.
I think Grimes had probably done a little more homework, and they told us something, a rendering up here that was probably real close to what most all of us had already envisioned in our head, and that was the deal that had them a little bit up, they had the leg up. But as far as the level of feeling like, you know what you're gonna get, both of those that was just over, that was the thing, they knew what they were doing, they put it up there. But if everybody's comfortable with Cadco, I guess we can entertain a motion to.
Well, do we rank those as Cadco 1?
Grimes
Grimes
second, or
second.
does somebody wanna move? LBL was third here, that was the Bryson project. How do y'all feel?
I mean, on Grimes, when they said they wasn't coming in on time, that's because there was a contractor, right?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that. I just know in both of those references, they were the contractor and the architect. So I know it's a two-way street too when you have an architect and a different contractor. They're both responsible for being on time and coming up with that finished product. So I think these two, they were both of them, the same person. And I think one of them, if I remember right, one of the architects really said about that balances.
Yeah, I think it's Cadco, wasn't it? They said you want to have two different.
Yeah, I want to make sure one's keeping the other one in mind. So hopefully we can go with Cadco and we can get the contract done, no problem. Sure, it'll be fine. And we'll just leave them that rank just like that.
Move LBL to second, it doesn't matter to me. I didn't know if the reason they wasn't on time is because there's a contractor. I mean, architect, I just gotta draw it up, right? Check it out.
They had it done before they started, really. I would do it.
So,
feelings on
But
that?
my opinion is, if we've had some negative stuff about Grimes, move them down the list.
We got
LBL up if everybody felt,
slide in
you've got
three.
heard good things to say about that. But I mean, I didn't rank them because I wasn't here, so.
So we got
Good presentation,
Cadco, LBL, and then Grimes probably.
I think
that's good.
we're gonna be able to get the knocked out
Yeah.
the first two.
We'll get there.
You may want, and how you want me to do it? I don't mind them coming in here when y'all go through that contract, if you wanna do that. It makes me no difference, but, or I can start that process and then bring y'all the contract,
Just
complete it, and let y'all, mail it to you, let you have time to look over it before we have a meeting.
as long as you got, you and the lawyer,
I got the support help I need,
yeah.
you rest
None
assured
of us
on
is
that.
gonna need
Yeah.
architect contract good.
So I think your motion needs to be, tied into number 7. Approve, select Cadco with the rankings as listed, and then tie it in and allow me to go ahead and start that process.
I'll make that motion.
Can you write that down?
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion
You're gonna make a motion.
You
to
wanna,
allow the superintendent,
no, that's the second last part. We wanna make the motion to select Cadco as our primary architect with
With the rank.
with the rankings
You
of
can
the
put
attached or something,
The
okay?
tax rankings.
And then allow me to start the contract negotiation, that's where you want to put it?
That sounds good to me.
Is that how you want to say it?
Exactly how you would think to say that.
Could you?
I don't want to put it there.
I'll second that.
A second, all in favor?
okay, who made those motions?
Jim Bob made a motion. He seconded.
And it was unanimously. That's exciting. Another step.
One more step. Baby steps.
It's time when we look at fire support tax collections.
Okay, I was real excited when he, finally got our numbers to us. You know, when you sit there and go through, a budget that's over $3 million, you never know when you might have, missed something, in the course of spending and expenditures. And we did really good this year, and was able to come up with a fund balance. I don't know if that's always good, because you want to provide, I think that there's a key thing here. We want to provide a good education to the kids. That's what we're here for. And if we're able to do it, within the budget, and then in this case, mainly because we had some growth in our students, we were able to save some money on our recapture amount that we've been talking about and been calculating, and then was able to put a little more back. So if you'll see on page 1 of the financial report, the ending number there on the right of that column there, $2,333,000 is our new fund balance. That's our money outside of our budget. That's our money. You can see it. We've got the old recapture calculations here. I'll probably leave that for another little while. We'll put some new ones in there for you. There are payments. I'll probably narrow that down so we'll look a little better. That cleans up August. We start a new year now. Actually, right now the money that we have is $1,946,000. Well, that's quite a bit lower than our fund balance. Well, the reason why we don't have any taxes coming in yet. We're going to dip into that money until our taxes come in, and then it'll go back up. We're projecting an overpayment from TEA of $212,000, which they got set quite a bit of that to us already. But it was good to see. If you look at their designated funds, y'all designated $1,150,000 with an undesignated amount now at $1,183,767. It probably of all that all that $2,333,000 fund balance, we only have $1.6 million in CDs. Even though CDs are not paying very much, we might wanna take another couple $100,000 and just stick, we're not gonna spend it, we need to probably stick it in there. Just enough so we can make a little bit more money off it.
I'm gonna ask a dumb question, but, we don't have anything left on our notes, right?
No, we don't have any notes.
What, the only debt we have, the outstanding debt is our bus.
Yeah.
Is there any, I mean, is
Way to pay
that,
that off?
I was wondering,
You can,
It's
we've done that,
3.5%.
we've done that before, it's not a big high amount.
Last year before last came and told us to pay off the debt.
It's a couple years ago,
well, we didn't put it a budget amendment or something in there, or something in the right spot or something.
that was my,
But, yeah.
we didn't,
No,
That was
you
budget.
were gonna have to pay that interest on it.
Yeah.
That
That was,
note.
that was the note for the
wasn't
remodel.
Yeah.
that was the remodeling note, we went ahead and paid it.
Remodel. We paid it off. It might be something, unless it adversely affects warranty or being able to get out from under it, if.
I think you're gonna have, let me check on that, okay? That may be something we might wanna do. You gotta remember too, when we do these things like that, we don't have them in our budget. And so the next, when it comes around, next year in August, you're not gonna have any overage because you spent it, on some other things. And paying the debt off is one that you would, we've got $36,000 budgeted for this payment. We would need to spend about $72,000 to finish paying that off, but we sure could. So let me just check on the warranty, let me check on that, and let us come back. And y'all can see if we want to do that. You can keep paying that like it is, and you can do lots of other things we talked about doing too. My thought was, I'd like to pay that bus off, at some point, maybe just when it's due, and then I'd like to turn around and buy a smaller one. We've got that money budgeted, and then just kind of keep our buses, instead of waiting for the last time, I'd like to get one that, our smaller groups of kids can go and not have to take the big activity bus, but make it not a school bus, but an activity bus. We just don't use school buses very much.
Yeah. We don't use yellow buses.
Yeah, just don't use them. We got them on the routes right now. That's real unusual for us. We just don't use
That
them.
little bus on the route, it sounds like it could blow up.
I know. He started it today, and I was going, I don't know how long that thing's gonna go. But then again, she'll have full load in the morning, and then she'll have one in the afternoon. So it's, she lives out there, let her keep her at the house, we don't have to drive back and forth. But that's one of the things I thought we'd be thinking about doing later, but let me get that information.
Yeah, I was just curious, I mean,
Anything we can pay off or save a little money is good too. That's, all your CDs are listed there, and I'm sure we could turn around and, even paying the bus off and putting $200,000 in a CD. We still got enough room to do that. So I would think instead of leaving that money just sitting there when we could make, $4,000 or $5,000, or maybe not that much, I'm not ready to pay right now, but stick it in there in a CD and then put it down here underneath. It'll show underneath the CDs next time that we'll make a little bit more money. Could pay our college classes or something. We did that. So if there's not any objection to that, I'm gonna check on that and see what we can do. That's all I have on that.
Do you have any questions? Not, we'll discuss suburban purchase.
One of the things I mentioned to you when we did our budget in August is the possibility of purchasing a Suburban. We talked about a used one. We talked about new ones. What I did was I went to Bailey Tolliver. I only went to one place so far, so I haven't got to do any kind of back and forth yet, but I wanted to throw these at you. An LT 2013 5.3 liter motor. The young man that I visited with, Rodney Medford, he came back with me. Our list price is $47,000, $47,300. The sale price for the vehicle will be $43,200. And then, as a school district, we receive a $5,700 discount from all vehicles. We don't pay tax, no sales tax, so we get $5,700. And then on top of that, if we put this vehicle in my use to my multi-district classroom every morning as a driving a special ed student, I only have to do that 50% of the time, little less than 50% of the time. The way I got this figure, really about 42% of the time. We can use it for all other activities, and I get $15,000 from Tri-County. So it becomes a two-deal thing that we can provide our special education transportation, only have to do it for about 40-something% of the time. Then we can use it in the afternoons and letting the girls, the cheerleaders drive something a little safer. And now that vehicle, it's down to a 2013 Suburban's down to $22,000 for us. We budgeted that much in there for a vehicle. I budgeted a lot more than that. It's a good thing for us. He's filling the application out for us at this time. That's Terry White. And there'll be some documentation, but I will have to let that drive a certain percentage of the time over there. She's driving the van right now. It's working fine, but I will have to do that to be in compliance. As long as we're going to be spending about 57% of local money on the Suburban and 43% of it IDEA money. So you can see the usage. There won't be any problem with that at all. Because when you get this lump sum of IDEA money, it has to be put into non-recurring expense. You couldn't turn around and hire an aide with it, because you can hire one time and then the next time it's on you.
The Suburban doesn't have to be handicap accessible to qualify or drive those kids?
Not according to Terry right now. He's providing an application. TEA will send us their response. But if they don't have any restriction on it, a lot of them, I don't know that answer. Then we'll be able to receive them. We'll have to pay this. I'll have to pay this full amount of $37,000. You'll see a bill there, and then we'll have to do a budget amendment for $15,000 that we'll get in coming in. So I'd like to be able to talk to, maybe y'all direct me to either Jake or maybe that there's somebody over at Anson that maybe even can save us a little bit more on the vehicles. But I thought that was another good way us to get a good vehicle.
When you say 42% of the time, what kind of bookkeeping do we have to do? Is it 42% of the miles? The days used for that?
I think if I allow them to use that every day, we're going to by far surpass that amount. And he did say there's some documentation we have to do, the mileage sheet or something. I would think it would be miles.
Yes, it would be 70 miles a day, would that be?
38 miles over there, I guarantee you exactly what it is.
But I mean, easily 80 miles a day, 400 miles a week.
4 miles a week.
Are you going to?
Through the end of the year, because by the time next year comes around, it's into a new,
Yeah, it's a whole new deal then.
Whole new deal then.
So we would, I just think it's just a good deal, and it's not going to hinder us in any way. They need a safe ride over there too. I'd hate for something to break down on them also. So, especially when our kids are having to take long trips, we got a really good vehicle for them. So,
I'd say see what Terry White finds out about the.
if y'all give me the permission, and I don't mind anybody call me and say, hey, talk to this guy, or talk to this guy. They may have a good deal on them. Or if you see something, let me know, so that, I personally like the leather in the vehicles. It's just a lot easier for us to clean them up here when there's many kids in them.
I agree.
So it's a lot, it's a little bit more, but,
Or not about $700 a man.
anyway, that's kind of it.
When you send it, you get fish, dolphin and cross seats, it don't come out very good. Well, y'all, I mean, it's not a voting item, I guess, but.
Well, it's a budgeted item. We voted on it, and it's in that budget. And what I'd like to do is, do the best we can to get that at the cheapest price we can and get that, I mean, if the money's there, let's get it over and let's start using it. I went and looked at used ones. I got online and said, okay, what's a 2011 or 2012? Those suckers are high. You're not saving much money. Those 2011s, 12s, they were right at $30,000 higher. So
And we're getting the extra
You're getting
at the
that.
school, and then.
And that 15,000 is only for new vehicles?
No, they didn't say that. You could use it for a used one, but you're gonna lose your 5,700.
Right.
You're not gonna get that. That's only for new vehicles.
We hadn't bought a new one since,
2002.
yeah, 2002. We bought 2 used ones in there, yeah.
I mean, they've got a lot of miles on them.
Yeah, they're all high, they're all wore out at the moment. They're out on the verge.
Did you want to look at, Robert Hall or?
Oh, yeah, I think I was going to. I mean, you just try to get the best price. I mean,
Sure.
you know this guy, you know those guys. So I was gonna call them and answer both and just tell them exactly what I wanted, but I wanted to tell you all the scenario of how the purchase was gonna be. Anyway, okay.
All right, number 10. Consider a junior senior trip to Washington, D.C.
Okay, I talked about this at the last regular meeting. I told you I was gonna get a group of teachers together, which I did, which included my 2 administrators. I talked to one of the teachers that had a student, parent, and then one of our regular teachers. And we kind of brainstormed, and we started looking at the possibility of doing this, and they were really excited about it. I thought it would be a really good thing for our students. If you look at page, right there, second to the last page in your booklet, you'll see a personalized educational student agenda for Aspermont School itinerary. Just real quickly, I'm going to not do every one of these, but I will tell you this. They will, by looking at our calendar, they would basically fly out of 3 selected airports. One would be Lubbock, Midland, or Dallas, whatever's best suited for us and the time to get them there. They'll fly there. They should get there around noon. This company, they will pick them up, and of course, Steve Long is my source on how this whole group works, and he says they're really, really good. They will pick them up at the airport, and they will start the tour right then. These kids are not going to motel. They're starting right then. You can see at 1:15, in 15 minutes, they're going to be at the visit the Arlington National Cemetery, see the changing of the guard, tomb of the unknown soldier, as well as visit the gravesite of the Kennedy brothers and the crew of the Challenger space expedition. At 3 o'clock, they'll visit the Museum of Marine Corps Air Force Memorials. They'll have dinner, which is paid for. They won't have to pay for it. They will, after dinner, go into the World War II and Martin Luther King memorials. And then at 10 o'clock, they'll check in the hotel. So $36 per student. If we took this year, we got an added expense of juniors and seniors. I don't feel that would be good for us to just take the juniors, not the seniors. And we can start, maybe it's going to cost us a little bit more this year. I expect us with sponsors and everything involved, we're looking at $35,000. I put $25,000 in the budget this year for this particular trip. I'm hoping through some fundraisers that have already started in preparation and hope of your approval that we could hopefully raise about $6,000 to $8,000, to offset this. If we get on normal years of $15,000, 15 students or something like that, we're not talking about $8,000 to $9,000 for the trip as far as the school district goes. And as you can see, that's a lot of things right there that, now we've got a lot of details to work out. There's no doubt we've got to visit a lot more, but getting the approval from the board allows me to go ahead and set the dates and start the process and get these kids excited about getting a chance to go and doing this. And I know there's a lot of our kids that have missed those opportunities, yours, mine, and others, but that don't mean we move forward. You know, we can't move forward and help the kids that are there now. And I just think it'd be a different thing unique for us, and I would hope you would think about considering that. Now, I'm sure you got lots of questions, what's Bosco and all that, and we'll continue to work on all those things to get those lined out, to get a fair representation of sponsors across the whole district, not just the secondary. But my vision is for juniors to be going, not seniors, and make it this thing so tight laced that it is educational, and that it will be.
Do you have leverage?
Yes, I've got that leverage. This is not a senior trip. It's no different than us. It's just, and it's not a long trip. We're talking two nights there, and then coming on back. The timing is perfect. There's not any activities going on that short time. It's after the regional track meet. Anybody advanced to state, can't play academics, track, anything, have a lot of time later to get there. All the tests are over for juniors and seniors. That's all completed, so it's really a perfect time for them to go. And the guy called me on the phone the other day. I was on the road, and he was talking about it, and he was answered a lot of my questions that I had at the time, and he either wanted us to get us booked in the date and get our flights ready and all that kind of stuff.
Does anybody have any?
I'm sure there's going to be questions I'm not going to be able to answer yet as far as sponsorships and those kinds of things, how much money the kids are going to be responsible for. There's a few meals that they have to pay themselves, and they will. We want some responsibility on it. But one of the biggest things I wanted to do it is I wanted to be able to send all our kids on an equal basis, not because this and raise this much money like you do on a senior trip. I wanted this to be equal and educational for every kid involved, and not hindering them with a lot of financial things on it, even though that makes you feel responsible. But I just want them to experience things, and that was my thought on it. Y'all may seem different.
Anybody have any questions?
How many sponsors do you take?
Well, you have to take a certain amount per the number of students, and they pay for like 2 of them. I think initially, when we do our sponsors per class, they're like 3 sponsors in each class. We got a double amount this time, so I'm sure not going to leave any of those off. If we can choose, we got to send an administrator along. Cherry's been one time before. I kind of was leaning on her, kind of making that initial thing, but we have to have someone to gather everybody in, but we'll get all those things lined out, and kind of come up with a plan that would, and I feel like this is, I think this is a district thing that, I'd love to be able to bring an elementary sponsor in there throughout the course of the time period, because I hope it's something we can do for a long, long time to come. And I want it to be that way. I don't want it to go 1 year we can't afford it, but I think it is affordable. I think it's an affordable amount when we start looking at just junior classes.
I know every other school around seems like sends their kids somewhere. you know, would it be no serious damage to the water or anything like that?
Well, this is something I hopefully, you look at the itinerary,
Yeah,
there's not a lot of dead time in there.
You wouldn't want much.
Now, and I think, Lisa Flowers, she thinks our kids will be just huddled up like this.
Don't be scared. I think it's great. I'd be happy to make a motion if everybody else is agreed.
I do.
Their
I'm all
opinion.
right, yeah, everything.
I make a motion that we approve it. Do we need it for those dates? I guess you can put that in there.
Okay.
All in favor? We just started the new tradition.
It took a long time.
Historical moment there.
A long one.
We'll see how they both go. Alright, always a fun thing. Item number 11, to nominate 3 individuals for the Stonewall County Central Appraisal District. And there you'll see a total of our votes. How many we get? We need to come up with 3 people and divide that number by 3. Isn't that correct?
That's right. She did tell me that all 3 want to stay on. You have, as you can see, you control that board. You can put anybody on there and they're gonna win. So.
You see the list of names, Jim Heck, Bill Mader, and Jim Ward. They all agreed to serve again. I guess, first question would be, would anybody here be interested?
I'm willing to step down if you guys want your, now, you're saying that because you've already served, that's not fair. If anybody else would like to serve.
You still got a term up.
I know, but I'm saying if anybody would like to take my place, I don't mind serving.
Is there anyone else that would like to?
I can't, so.
So what you're saying is we'd like to nominate Jim, Bill, and Jim?
Yes, we would.
Okay. With the votes divided equally, we would probably need a motion to do that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank y'all very much. You have to finish yours out.
Sorry.
Sorry, nobody stepped up.
I did that.
I did it once too.
You didn't stick it out.
For more than
Ah,
once.
okay.
All right, this time I think we'll discuss the UIL update.
I was real pleased to, told you, many of you know I serve on the legislative council. We met, last, Sunday and Monday at Austin. And as we've talked before over the last couple of years, that was an historic meeting because they passed the 6 conferences that we've been talking about that basically now will allow our size schools to become Class A, and the 11-man Class A schools, or the Hamlins, the Haskells, the Stanfords, will become 2A, and everybody else will move up. Now, how that, by just a name, that sounds pretty simple, but it allows us to now compete for a state championship in our divisions in golf, tennis, academics, 1-act play. Track's already there. We got that passed this year, but it's basically we have a conference of our own, and we're our kids get a chance to advance to step. Volleyball, softball, baseball, and band. If we competed, we'd have to compete in 2A. Now, we are going to continue to compete in volleyball because the schools in our district are basically our size schools, and so we can continue to compete very well. But you will be playing, you know, just as we are now. The thought of it is 2A, but they're really the same schools. It will move up Class A to, instead of 99.9, it'll go to 104.9 as far as the cutoff. So it's a little higher, and they will move 2A, which is Class A elementary schools up a little higher also. So they'll be bringing more, but that was a historic deal. I'm real proud of it because it's something that we initiated here at Aspermont. It came from this school. We were recognized by the committee. Like I said, there's 28 superintendents that serve on that. This was a huge meeting, and Dr. Fryer from UAL recognized us for pushing this forward and making this happen. And I was just really, really excited for it. It's got to be approved by the Commissioner of Education, and then it'll go into effect 2014. And then you'll read about it, and you'll see it, and that was the best thing. Also, a little bit of change. There'll be advance of 3 1-act plays to the next level, and they will be adding by district in between district and area. That'll start
one more goes on, but we eliminate, we're back to same area. That's where we were.
Yeah, you'll have zone, you'll have district, and then you'll have by district. It adds by district and then adds a third.
They'll take 3 each time?
Not to
Each
state.
Okay, but
Only 2 to state.
3 from zone.
3 zone district, by district area?
Now, zone is gonna be a district decision.
Okay, you can go.
UAL is gonna be District 3,
Okay.
by District 3, Area 3, Regional 3, State 2. Okay. So zone will be a little bit. I'm sure they'll take 3 more likely, but that'll be a district decision. The other issue that you might have read about a little bit, that they made a big change. Charter schools will now have to compete in the district that they gather from at the lowest level classification. Like, for example, if you got a charter school in Dallas, it doesn't matter if they play a 6-man football, they will have to play whatever the lowest classification is.
Right, there's the 3A.
Now, they're gonna have some exceptions in there, and they're gonna let you apply for a waiver. But you've heard Deion Sanders, Prime Time Academy, open, and it was based on enrollment for athletic purposes. And this is what they had to do to stop these schools bringing kids for athletic purposes. They have to play at the 4 or 5A level and not be down there at the 1 or 2A level and recruiting basically kids for athletic purposes. So it was really focused on that. But they have some exception, like Lubbock Harmony, it's a little 6-man school up here. Lubbock, under the current rule, they had to play 3A. Well, that would just eliminate the program. But they do have some exceptions in there that they can apply for, so I feel like they'll be okay. Other than that, it was real good, it's real supportive, and it was just neat when you had every one of those superintendents supporting that. There was no opposition for it, and it was for the little bitty schools. When they went around the room, they announced everybody where they're from and what region they serve, and they asked them to say a little bit about. So every one of them started saying their enrollment. They were going to Raleigh ISD 53,000, and the Katy ISD was 83,000 or 86,000. And then one guy from Sci-Fi, he was 110,000. He had a meeting right beside me. And then he come to Aspermont, was at 256. I got quite a chuckle out of it.
But we won that one. We're proud of what you've done on it.
So track is this year?
This year is different, Keith, because this year it's a Class A Division 2. It'll be like that this year and next year. And then after that, it'll be Class A, and then everything all the way to 6A. So it's a unique deal for 2 years. It is. And then it'll be back to Class A.
That's cool.
If you've got a little bit of information if you hear somebody talking or know what they did and why they did it. You'll know a little bit more about it.
Thank you very much. Anybody have anything else? If not, we would consider a motion for adjournment.
I'll second it.
And everybody was in favor? Thank you very much.